Welcome, everyone, to today's episode of Her Story, brought to you by Chamber Fayetteville. My name is Angela Belford. Today I'm your host, and I'm very excited to be joined today by Takama Statton-Brooks. Takama, can you go ahead
Yes.
and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, I would love to. So I am somebody that moved to Northwest Arkansas just about 20 years ago. I have two wonderful kids and a husband, and I have been working at Magdalene Serenity House for the last 2.5 years, so almost 3 years of great joy working to heal women. So
That is fantastic. I love Magdalene Serenity House. I love the work that you guys are doing. For those people that aren't already super in love with what you guys are doing, just give us a little brief overview of the work that you're doing there.
absolutely. So Magdalene started, I'll just backtrack just a little bit, almost 10 years ago. So we'll celebrate our ninth year of being a nonprofit this year. But how it all came about was there was a women's prison here locally, just off College Avenue, and that prison had a ministry through St. Paul's that went there and they did a thing called Prison Stories where the women got to see their stories performed by actors. And one of the women who our prison ministries had gotten really close to when she was released, she died maybe 2, 3 weeks later under some mysterious circumstances. And the people were wonderful. So Suzanne Stoner, who was one of our founding board members, and Lowell Grisham were talking with each other. And Suzanne said, "We have got to do something. We can't just let this keep happening." And what she really meant is the cycle of incarceration. And there's really no avenues for help for women who have a history, a felony history in particular. And on top of that, addiction and all the other barriers that come with a lifestyle of heavy justice involvement. And so they did a little research, found a program that we're similar to, which is we are modeled after Thistle Farms in Nashville, Tennessee.
Oh, yeah.
And what we do is probably the most important thing of all. We work with women who have that high justice involvement to rebuild their life. And it sounds so simplistic, but the truth is there's so many barriers if you've had a lifestyle of incarceration, addiction, and past trauma. So we work with them on their financial stability. We work on them with some of their social connections and relationships. We help them with dental restoration. That's so critical for them to get jobs and to feel self confident. And then we host programs for them to make sure that they're kind of staying in line with their recovery path and their journey for healing.
I love that. I have so many thoughts because I'm so in love with the work that you guys do. I've forgotten that you guys were modeled after Thistle Farms, who I've also followed and admired for years. So, and all the people that you named. Anyway, I'm a raving fan. Anyway, so take us back to the beginning. Where did your career start? So that's a little about Magdalene House, but tell us more about you and your career and kind of how you landed here.
Yes. Well, I started as a social worker. So when I completed my master's, I thought for sure I was going to change the world and do things in the social work realm. And what happened is I somehow took a turn into higher education. I loved my undergrad experience. I was heavily involved as a student, and I never thought I would be working in higher ed, but it just kind of serendipitous. It just happened. And so I ended up in higher education for 22 years doing student life or student affairs, depends on what kind of campus you're coming from. But I worked in the residential setting. So this is actually very similar to my old hat, where I got to work with students and their journey. And I worked with tons of student employees and full time professionals. The bulk of the professionals I worked with were new ones. So development has always been a part of my lens. And I really had such a great career in higher education. I went from a role where I was training and recruitment. I actually transitioned to the University of Arkansas, and that was my last higher ed stint in 2006. So
Okay.
I've been at the University of Arkansas from 2006 all the way to 2023 and always in residence life. So I always stayed in higher education, working with college students and watching the transition from, students who went from high school directly into college. And it was a wonderful, wonderful career. But I had a moment where I said to myself, what could bring me back to making an impact on others? And I just felt like I was ready to make a change that would allow me to do that everyday impact on people. And it's not that you don't get it working with college students because that's such great work, and I absolutely love my time. But this allows me to be a little more hands-on in the day-to-day lives, and we have 8 women that we serve at a time. So I had somebody actually say, "Oh, you must have so much free time." No,
No.
I work in nonprofit now, which is completely different. So I get more hands-on with a lot of things, not just my administrative lens, but the healing journey. I get to see it every day. And sometimes when you're in a setting where you don't see the same people every day, you kind of miss where their progress goes. And so
Mhm.
this actually brought me back to the social work lens that I started in. And fun fact, I should put this on truths and a lie, but I when I was in college, my getting my master's in social work, I actually worked in a prison in Kansas. So
Wow.
I was an academic tester, which meant that every day I got a new group of people that I was helping define skills assessments. And at the time, I'm not sure if they still do it or not, but at the time, the academic placement decided on what resources the person needed. It was all one central spot when they were transferred to their ultimate incarceration spot. So I'm back to working with the very first population I actually work with, which is incarcerated people. So
I love how things and I there was someone else on one of these if you've listened to all of the episodes, I think this theme has come up at least once or twice, but this idea of, like, there's never wasted work, and Brittany Phillips talked about when she was at first starting as a graphic designer and you have to do the just the grind kind of work, like saving the files, and you think you're not doing really important work, and then you find
mhm,
out later in your career that it was really important that you know that thing. And so there's this idea of like, just don't skip over those introductory experiences that you have, because sometimes it feels like sometimes young people are like, "Oh, I want to change the world now," and it's like, yeah,
oh,
and
absolutely.
you've got to learn some of those skills that you probably learned in those early years that then have set you up for tremendous success now.
100%. Yeah, I wouldn't if you would have told me during my graduate school time that I would ultimately be back with working with justice involved people, I didn't see it and I wouldn't have seen it then. So
Mhm.
I'm very grateful though. Every once in a while I'm reminded of we all have a path that we've been on,
Mm,
and one small thing can set you back. And so we're working with people that have had multiple things happen that have set them on a path and we're grateful to be able to redirect them back to the one that they want to be on.
that's beautiful. So when you talk about being more hands-on, that sounds like code words for you wear a lot of different hats. So I'd love to hear what is a regular Tuesday look like for you, because we really want people to understand kind of what it's like for the women and sort of everyday people balancing their lives alongside their career. What's a Tuesday look like?
Well, a Tuesday in my executive director role means that I'm probably starting with bills and administrative tasks and emails and things that don't feel as fun. But one of the beautiful things about Magdalene, and it really has centered me, is we start every morning with morning circle, is what we call it. And so that's a meditation that we send out to our women here, and they get to process it. You like, what does that meditation mean to them? And then we do a general check in. And every once in a while, the meditation is like, man, I've just gone to church and it's a reminder of what I need to focus on in my life. So it's a great way to start your day. Like, who can say that they really start with a meditation unless you do that at home? But here in my work setting, it's just like what motivates you, or sometimes we do accomplishments and you're like, man, I had a full week and it's Wednesday. I accomplished all these things.
Yeah.
So administrative tasking for sure. I've got to learn a lot of things that I didn't in my last role. If you're in a large organization, there's very siloed responsibilities. So somebody might be in finance and you have a finance team. You have somebody that's in IT and does a IT role. You can have somebody that does you name it, research and assessment kind of things. Well, I dabble in all of those and master of none. Uh, but I get to maintain our website, help with our social media. I get to meet with constituents. Like this morning, I started off by meeting with the Springdale Rotary Club. So
Mm.
myself, Joy, our development director, and then one of our residents, she was so gracious. We're like, "We're gonna pick you up at 6:50 in the morning. Does that sound good?" She's like, "Totally fine." She was ready to go, and she hadn't even had coffee. She was so excited. But that's kind of the diversity of the day. It could look any kind of way.
I love that.
Yeah.
What is a moment in your career that kind of changed everything? Like a pivot, maybe it was a setback that pointed you in the right direction. And yeah.
I think a pivot in my career actually was around probably the loss of my father. So he was somebody that I talked to on my way to work and we were chit chatter. My dad was quite the jokester. I mean, he had to come back for almost anything. And I was talking with him. I was like, man, I really am thinking about getting my social work license again. And this is while I was still in higher education. And he said, "Oh, okay. Well, what's stopping you?" Well, the truth is I was stopping me. I
Mm,
couldn't think of a reason why I needed to continue it because I was content in my job. I really loved it. But I was like, it just something told me I needed to do it. So when he passed, I started thinking about my unfulfilled promise to myself. And so I just decided I needed to pursue that. But I was like, well, what would I do with this social work degree? 'Cause I was like, I guess in social work, it's kind of broad. It's not like I could say I'm getting my accounting degree but I'm gonna help people and use it in my role because I wasn't an accountant, nor will
right.
I ever claim to be. But, when I started working on the relicenser process, I said, "I really need to do something that gives me great joy
Mm,
and fulfillment and that honors my commitment to social work," which is where I started. So, here I am at Magdalene. I saw this position, and again, one of those things, if you would have told me I would be in a startup nonprofit, I would have said, "Nope, don't see it in my future." But I'm really grateful for the people that had the vision and idea for this concept because there's a huge need for us to work with people in different capacities. And so sometimes we have forgotten populations and incarcerated women who are also mothers, who are also sisters, who are also best friends. This is a population that sometimes doesn't get the services that they need. So my social work lens that I was yearning for, but couldn't understand why, this is probably the path that was meant for me.
I love that. And you needed to go off on that side quest of housing and
Yeah.
residences for, those years so that you could probably bring a ton of that experience back to this position.
Well, and I totally thought, that I would transition from the role I was in to a different one in higher education. And sometimes it's just not meant to be. So
Mm. If you're speaking to a young woman early in her career, what advice would you give to her? Especially somebody that's interested in what you're doing.
so I used to work with a lot of new professionals in my role in working with college students and also just general, not just students, but in higher ed, you work with a bunch of new professionals, some seasoned, some student level, so all kinds of diversity. And what I would tell people who were in the graduate assistantship is don't just go for the name brand. In other words, if you're planning to go into higher ed, you can't just pick a Harvard or a school that you're familiar with. You take a risk sometimes with the smaller ones, similar to what I'm doing here in nonprofit because you can get a lot more experience. So it's not really
Mm,
about the name that you will carry with you as far as places worked. It's the work that you will do in those places. So I always say that. And then I also say, be bold in your decision
mhm.
because no career is forever. You can always change, but you kind of have to place yourself in a position for people to see the experiences you might bring, not just the ones you think you have.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, the big, bold decisions that you make now really do pay off. Like you said, they're skills that you learn in every position.
Mhm.
And I used to have some team members that would be like, oh my goodness, I'm doing another staff training. But I have sat through more student staff training than I care to admit, because you do it twice a year over the course of 22 years. Well, I can take anything, any conversation, any training, and learn something from it if I'm focused and pay attention. So I can't just show up. I have to show up and pay attention, be
Mm.
engaged, ask questions. And I think that really resonates with the people who are also participating alongside you.
It's fascinating because when I was first getting certified as a life coach, I had already written a book and I'd already, done a lot of work in a lot of therapy and a lot of everything. And I used to be so arrogant and be like, oh no, I need an experienced coach to help me because I am advanced. And so new coaches can't help me. And what I've learned is that that was my inexperience, that was my arrogance, that was me, because now as a very experienced coach with 4 to 5 years under my belt, like, I'm like, "Bring it, anybody." Like, I can learn something from the newest coach, I can learn something from the most experienced coach, like, to your point, you have, like, it is absolutely us continuing to cultivate that rookie mentality, right? And, like, what
Absolutely.
can I learn today? What is one thing? And I often will say, if I go to spend 30 minutes to an hour in a training or in a session, if I pick one new thing and that changes how I think about something, it was worth it. Like, because that investment is gonna pay off for years and years. I love the longevity and the wisdom of being older, because then I'm just like, "No, that wasn't a waste of time." And I'll have people that are like, "Oh, that was a terrible presentation." I'm like, "Oh, yeah, but I still picked up one nugget." Right? Like,
Yeah.
I love the heart of that.
And I would say this to new professionals too, because I often find people saying, "Oh my gosh, that training was terrible," or "I would have done this." Then do it. You you
Yeah.
can't just complain about things that are
Yes.
around you, your experiences, what you have opportunities to do. You have to do a little. You have to do something about it.
Yeah, for
So,
sure.
that would also be a piece of advice. So if you think you could do that presentation better, then you should probably do that presentation better,
Yeah,
and then tell your boss you'd like to do the presentation,
there you go.
you
I
know?
love that. Speaking of what our heart and soul, Fayetteville in Northwest Arkansas has a way of getting into people's soul. What is it about this community that made you stay, come back, or choose it in the first place?
This is such a great place. So I've had both my kids here, they are teenagers now, and it has been a great place to raise a family. I think the city of Fayetteville is always evolving, and it's changing, and it's growing, but so is the community around us. So my kids
Mhm.
have gotten exposure to a lot more things than I was exposed to as a young person, and so I'm grateful for that. I would also say that they really like it here. So I came from a military family, so being a little more transient was probably where I wanted to be, and I tried to drag my husband along, and that didn't work out. So after 2 attempts to move us somewhere else, we love this area, and even if we moved, it wouldn't be because we didn't like the Northwest Arkansas area.
I love it. You mentioned your children, so would love to hear what is a real work-life balance hack that you have and something that works that you can share with our listeners.
Yes. So working in this nonprofit world where my days don't quite look the same every day has been wonderful, but it also means that I need to kind of map out my time so that I'm where I need to be at the right time. So both of my kids are active in their extracurricular activities, and they're not driving on their own just yet. So that means that I am a professional Uber driver
Yep.
and I get them to and from where they need to be. But I think when people have that perception that you can just turn something off and then turn on your hat for mom, parent, best friend, whatever it is that outside of your work world you are, for me, that's not really reality. And sometimes, like even in my old role in higher education, I brought my kids to events. So you
Uh-huh.
just kind of balance where it needs to be. And I do look on Sunday morning to see where I'm supposed to be all week so that I can decide who's picking up who's, are we making dinner? My poor kids would love to eat out because I'm not the best cook, but that's also not going to happen. So I do have to
Because
do
you
a little.
mentioned a nonprofit startup.
Yes. So I'm definitely on the path to, I have to think about how I can integrate my family because even I told you I did a presentation at 7:30 this morning. Well, that means somebody had to do something in the morning to make that happen. So,
Yeah, I love that. People ask me, "How do you have time to do everything?" And I'm like, I don't spend 15 hours a week in a car anymore. Like, do you know how it's a part-time job to drive children around, especially that season right before they drive, like, because 'cause they're so busy, and I think it's designed to allow us to let them drive because we just are, like, exhausted. We're like, "Yes, fine. Yes, you can drive. Yes." So it allows buys us a little bit of just time freedom, it feels like. So
Yeah, I wish some working moms would have told me that because I certainly didn't appreciate how busy. I think at every season of your life as a working woman, you think of things a little differently. So when my children were little, I was like, oh, I can't wait for them to walk. Oh, I can't wait for them to do this. Oh, I can't wait, and you think you'll have more time, but your time just shifts.
it does shift.
And so I know for myself that work-life balance has looked different at every season of my life. And now my kids are in activities, which makes it a little harder for them to come to things after hours. Like we've hosted some events here for Magdalene Serenity House, and I've tried to bring them, but it's not the same thing as going to their school, picking them up because I would have to pick them up early and then bringing them back. So it's a little bit of a juggle. You do have to balance it, but my kids have always been a part of my work world.
I love that. That's beautiful. Okay, so any last thoughts you wanna leave our listeners before we jump into our rapid fire questions?
I will say this. So one of the pivots in my career, moving to nonprofit, I was surprised about how much I didn't know about Northwest Arkansas and the resources that are here.
Hmm,
So I'd been working and living in this community for a long time, but I wasn't involved in any boards. I wasn't participating as a regular volunteer experience with nonprofits. I wasn't aware of the resources. Working on a college campus is a bit like an encapsulated city.
mhm.
You have food, you have maintenance, you have a lot of
Housing?
resources, professors, yeah, housing. It's
Yeah.
all there in a bubble, and so I think this expanded lens that I have has allowed me to be a more connected citizen to the community, and that's been great. I even got to participate in Leadership Fayetteville last year, which how on earth did I not even hear about it until
Right,
last year?
right. So then back to the what we would talk to young people, would you recommend that young women early in their career when it doesn't feel like they have time to jump in and find a board, find a nonprofit that they can either volunteer or serve with? Is that some advice
I
you'd give them?
I think it's easy when you're a young professional to think that your grind every day is work related. And so I absolutely think it's important to get connected. And I did some volunteer stuff, but mostly that came with my job. So if
Mhm.
we all volunteered somewhere together
Right.
or if my kids were volunteering, and this experience, now I volunteer just because it's the thing I should do as a nonprofit. If I'm asking people to serve with me, I also serve with them. And so I do think you get a better connection to the community that you're living in when you're outside of your everyday bubble, when you get connected with something. And with serving on a nonprofit board and finding something that you're passionate about, that you're aligned with their mission, will make a world of difference in your connection to your community and your awareness of what's happening.
Yeah, I agree with you 100% because I say a lot, a volunteer, when you're volunteering and serving on a board or even just regular volunteering, it should do a couple of things. Number one, it should bring you a lot of joy. I mean, and
Yes.
not to say that anything you do is going to have hard things, but also it should bring you joy. The other thing is that it's an opportunity to learn things that you maybe somebody's not willing to pay you to do yet. And so I say often, like, if you want to say you want to learn how to do websites and you want to learn how to edit websites, well, guess what? Most nonprofits would be like, oh, you want to practice? And I'm telling you, with YouTube and AI, you can learn as most nonprofit executive directors have to learn how to do that. And so it's a great way to then build up your experience, but then also, in addition to being connected to the network, I mean, community, you also build your network because then
Mhm.
people can get a sense of what your work ethic is like and they can get a sense of what it's like to have you on a team and how great is that for when you get ready to apply for different jobs and hear about different job openings. So I think that's absolutely great advice. Okay, rapid fire. You ready? Break-
Yes.
Okay. The job you wanted at 10 years old,
Teacher.
of course. Beach, mountains, city, or staycation?
I would say beach.
Okay. Bonus hits your account today. What's the first thing you do with it?
I don't know, save it.
Describe your work wardrobe in 3 words. Go.
Chic teacher, cardigan and t-shirt.
I love it. The one goal you have not told anyone about yet. Are you ready to say it out loud?
Mm. I would love to do contract work, uh, doing presentations and helping in a broader sense.
Okay, that's fantastic. Thank
Mhm.
you so much for joining us today. This has been a lovely conversation. I really appreciate it. And until next time, when we get to hear the next story, brought to you by Fayetteville Chamber and Be Freaking Awesome.